use their GPS and things in indexing that stuff. It's so frustrating because they're on the photo.
Yep.
But they're not there.
I wonder what they were doing when they filled those things up.
I don't know.
When they backfilled all that.
I don't know. I mean, I was surprised to even see them because I mean, we've never dealt with them, you know. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see it dug and where they're actually at, you know.
I think that's their biggest fear is once they start moving that dirt,
Right.
where they're at and what's going to happen.
But you think even if it was 2-3 feet underground, I could hit it with a metal detector and it would hit something if there's a metal lid on it.
Right.
Some kind, but. Good day.
Still in those results.
How are you? Excellent. Good.
Not to add that into your phone list.
No, it's quick.
You come across 108.
Sometimes I do
Gun
that,
mill.
sometimes I go up, I don't know what it is, 34.
34.
The one that goes to 9.
Yep.
And then 7.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes I'll come that way, it's about the same, so.
Such a small crowd, they compared to what
Sometimes we'll zigzag back, go through row off, you know, down a row, or just
Yeah.
kind of find a
Yeah.
different way to go.
Just watch out for deer, right?
Yeah, I know.
I should try to set up a meeting with Brian to see if we can start planning for the next couple. I mean, that's not about February.
Yeah,
we
well,
have-
we should, yeah, but I mean, we gotta get
Yeah.
postcards put together and notice and all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah, I'll make a note to them.
Try to set up a-
Meet with him and
Yeah.
Brian.
Because, yeah, we were gonna set their last, I think Brian was gone.
Yeah.
Our last meeting.
He was.
We were gonna talk about it, so.
And I can take time to put together with holidays.
And Emma's still out, I assume, for a while?
Yeah, I'm not sure when he's coming back. She was not for 3 months for maternity leave.
Oh, wow, good for her.
So yeah, probably maybe to January.
Really? Okay.
I think when she had.
Yourself?
Maybe it was November. I remember when she had her.
Looking forward to plowing around some roundabouts?
Yeah.
Time flies.
Plow over them first.
Exactly. Shave them down a little bit, make them a little more reasonable.
It's nice people still do them for meetings like that.
Yes.
So far, so.
I'm ready. Should we start with it? So we're good.
Well, you have to accept
Time is 4:30 PM. The Pelican Rapids City Council meeting of 14 December 2021 is called to order, and ask those in our council chambers, if you have not signed in on the clipboard by the back door, if you would do so before you leave, and if we'd all put our cell phones on vibrate. Roll call, a member, Danielle.
Councilmember Steve Strand.
Here.
Councilmember Kevin Ballard.
Here.
Councilmember Kurt Markgraf.
Here.
And Councilmember Steve Foster is not here yet. And Mayor Brent Fraser.
Here. Want to welcome each and every one of you here to our council chambers this evening. Also, those joining us on Zoom this evening. And remember, our council meetings are seen every Wednesday evening on Channel 14. There is a reminder tonight for our council meeting. We're having a truth and taxation hearing at 6 p.m. So we'll break our council meeting where we are at that point to go to the truth and taxation hearing. Announcements, a few announcements for the next month. I guess. Thursday, December 23rd, City Hall offices are open from 7:30 to 12:30 p.m. Friday, December 24th, City Hall offices are closed. Wednesday, December 29th, 10 to 11 is conversations with the mayor at Historic City Hall. I should also remind you that on December 28th, the last Tuesday of the month, we are not having a council meeting, so there's no council meeting on December 28th. Thursday, December 30th, City Hall offices are 7:30 to 12:30 p.m. Friday, December 31st, City Hall offices are closed. Our next city council meeting is slated for January 11th, 2022 at 4:30 p.m. here at City Council Chambers. Any other announcements? Any other announcements? Hearing none, if you'll all please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Citizens' comments. Anyone here for citizens' comments? Okay, seeing none. Agenda items, additions and deletions. There are two additions. You have a revised council agenda before you. The additions are item number 13, the Truth and Taxation hearing at 6 p.m. And item number 14 is approved the 2022 general budget. You have that agenda, printed agenda before you. Any other additions or deletions? Any other additions or deletions?
I move to approve with the additions of 13 and 14.
Motion second. Discussion? Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Item number 4 is approval of consent agenda. Item number 4 is approval of minutes of the council meetings of November 30th, 2021 and December 9th, 2021. Item 4B is approval of accounts payable list. Item 4C1 is police chief report, which is in your packet. 4C2 is financial report, which is in your packet. And 4D is certified administrative penalty for the following address. The first one is 10 Northwest 1st Street in the amount of $50. The second one is 327 Northwest 3rd Street in the amount of $50. Is there a motion to approve? Second? Motion second. Discussion? Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Item number 5 is street and park report. We have Brian Olson with us here. Superintendent Olson.
Moving quick tonight. Just mainly what I need to do is hire skating rink employees tonight, but we did get the Christmas lights and banners up this year again, which they're getting a little bit shady over. They're just starting to rust and fall apart, so something that we'll have to start looking at probably after 2024. Did get to clean up a little bit of snow and also some downtown, so we got a first taste of that, which was, of course, short-staffed right away going into the first plow, so that always makes it a little more interesting. In the parks, we continue to work on the land, kind of clearing the brush down on the land we acquired near the Legion. So that's kind of an ongoing project that we're doing. And then we will start flooding the skating rink here coming up when the weather's supposed to turn cold for us, so that'll help. And it should open right, hopefully during Christmas break when the kids are off. So if we can get cold enough weather and enough water on it to make good ice, we'll plan to open that. And with that, I need to get approval to hire some help for there. I'd like to hire Rachel Linus, Kyle Crump, Tori Huseby, Isaac Olson, Brandon Heaton, Bryce Seipel, and Cale Richardson. They will, the new ones, Rachel and Isaac will make $11.58. The other group will make $11.08. So if you can approve the help, that would be great.
I'll move we hire those people. Is there a second? Second. Motion second, discussion?
Who will be doing the scheduling for those?
I will be.
Okay.
I will be doing that myself this year, so.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. We also should have a motion to approve the superintendent's report.
Yes, if you can, I'm sorry. I jumped right ahead.
So moved.
Second? Motion second, discussion, hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same, motion carried.
Perfect, thank you.
Item number 6 is the library report that is in your packet. We have Mr. David Gottenborg here this evening to answer any questions you would have, David. Are there any questions for David? I had one. Is there a vacancy on the board at present?
Yeah, yes, there will be.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Have you had any, do you have any ideas, or, okay,
Okay, I was just curious.
okay.
I would just like to commend the library board on avoiding, we probably may have had a tough time this year, as we have years in the past. And kudos to Annie for getting your numbers down.
Oh, I have one thing to add.
Yes.
I made a note here on our meeting. I want to thank Kurt for 3 consecutive terms. He now finishes on the library board. I believe that hasn't been done. Annie has said that. No one, she's never had any member stay for 3 consecutive terms. So we want to thank you, and so we appreciate all of his help.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I enjoyed my time.
Any other questions or comments? If not, is there a motion to approve the library report? Second? Motion second, discussion, hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same, motion carried. Item number 7 is dam project report, and I'm going to turn that over to Don to introduce who is all here on, is there people online also?
Amanda's online and Wes Keller's online.
Now we have Howard here in the audience.
Okay. I'm not sure if Rick is on yet. I'm not sure who Bentley is, or if Bentley, I'm not sure who that is. The whole idea tonight was for the DNR and Houston Engineering to come on and update the council on where things are at with the dam. And so up on the screen, I have a couple of things that were sent over to me from Houston Engineering. And let's see, Wes, do you know if Rick is going to be getting on, or if he is on? Can you hear me, Wes? How about Amanda? Amanda, can you hear us? Wes, can you hear us?
Let glitch on our end here?
Pardon?
Is there a glitch on our end?
Probably.
Don, Kevin Nelson's watching online. He said the Zoom participants can't hear anything.
You can't hear anything?
No, you don't have audio going out.
No, it's not Check, check. Check, check. Wes, are you able to hear us now?
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
All right, all right. I don't see that Rick is on.
Yeah, he's with me here.
Oh, okay. Okay. I gotta switch screens again here, so hang on. Okay, Rick, you guys had I think you were just gonna give the council an update on where the dam project is at. If you wanna kind of take it, I have on the screen one of the two displays that you sent me, or files you sent me. If you want me to switch to the other one, just let me know.
Grab to it?
Pardon?
What? Was there a problem with one of the images?
No, I got both images. Just let me know which one you want me to show first.
You got the perfect one there right there.
All right,
Well,
go ahead.
okay. Thank you, council, for listening to us tonight. Sorry we couldn't be there. Amanda is on the phone, correct? Everyone here, Amanda?
Yes, I'm here.
Is Howard in Pelican Rapids?
Yes, I'm in attendance.
Good, okay. Well, we just wanted to give you an update on the Pelican Rapids project, and we thought good time to do it, because I know there's been a lot of interest in where things are at and what we've been up to. So I'm going to go through about 6 different things here. We don't want to take up too much of your time, but we're certainly entertaining any questions. We're going to talk about 6 different things. One is about Pelican Pete itself. We got some new news about him. We're going to talk about some storm sewer complications that we ran into. We're going to talk about bridge abutments and a good bridge. That's mostly good news. We also want to talk about doing some potential work this winter. We don't really see us being able to do the rapids this winter, but we do think we'll be able to do the dredging, the excavation of the pool area upstream from the dam, and we'll have another sheet that Don will bring up to show you that. And then we want to talk a little bit about operation next year before we actually get the rapids in place. So there's been a number of things we've learned since we last talked to you, and some of them just recently.
about a week and a half ago, audits from DNR. DNR is cultural resource person, and he indicated to us that SHPO, the State Historical Preservation Office, is very interested and concerned about what happens to Pelican Peak. We thought we had a decent idea that what we do is get the job, ask the contractor to submit a lifting and placement plan, and we'd be on our way. But SHPO is very concerned about the potential of what's going to happen to Pelican Peak when that process is completed, and also what kind of restoration will be done to Pete, because we know he does have some damage now, and it's probably best to take care of it, before we get him set in a permanent position. So I guess one of the things that we're considering is talking to some special experts in the restoration and removal of Pelican Peak. Recently there's been, this summer there was some activity with Baby Blue Ox and Paul Bunyan, and there was a company that went up there and did some restoration work. I think with some damage caused by some youngsters or some, somebody broke an arm off or something. So we do know there are experts in the country that would probably get more recognition from the state of state. We think it's probably a worthwhile endeavor to engage somebody like that to help us decide what's the best way to get Pelican Peak removed out of the way, restored, and back in place without, potential damage to an icon of the area there. One of the things that we do know is that we don't really know what the cost of anything like that will be yet, but we do know Amanda and the TNR would certainly pay for the peat, starting with the replacement of peat from the end of the project, but she won't have the money for the restoration, which is something that really isn't her responsibility or the state's responsibility for doing the dam removal and the replacement with the rock rapids. So there's going to be some sort of a plan in place and funding to get that portion of the project paid for. So that portion had to come from a grant from the city themselves. Would have to come up with the restoration costs. So that's one thing. That's one item that we wanted to talk to you and inform you about. And I guess our plan, if it's okay with the council and Don, is that we get a proposal from experts in this type of work and help us come up with a plan that will satisfy SHPO. And the reason SHPO needs to be satisfied is in order for us to work in the channel, we do need a permit from the Corps of Engineers, and the Corps of Engineers will not approve the permit without SHPO being satisfied. So we need to do something to get SHPO satisfied, and there's a number of emails between SHPO and ourselves and DNR, so we do go there going to require something more significant than what we thought we'd have to do when we started the project. So just wanted to inform you that, and that number one item. I don't think there's any questions, but maybe we can leave the questions so we go through all these items that we're talking about. The next complication is a sewer in the south edge of the, I guess I call it the powerhouse building, the white building. We found a 27-inch storm sewer. I don't know if you see where Wes is pointing.
Probably not. If you zoom in kind of right at the outlet there, and you can actually kind of see where that pipe's coming out, right where your cursor is there.
And there's a significant storm sewer there, and it supplies a pretty good portion of the city south of Highway 108. And we learned that is also going to be tied into the storm sewer that's going to replace the reconstruction of Highway 108 in 2024. The problem is, right now, we don't really know what that 27-inch is connected to. We have found some records where it was tied into a manhole that's just over the building. But we believe that was covered up or possibly removed. Wes has a meeting with concerning what's going to happen with the storm sewer in 108. And the bad thing is I shouldn't say the bad thing. The thing we have to find out is, what can we do in order to construct our rapids without interfering with all the operation of the new storm sewer for 108 work. It could be rather complicated in that the storm sewer elevation is actually lower than what we want our rock rapids to be. So we may have to find another outlet downstream in order to make the 108 storm sewer work. But it gets kind of complicated. It's just another feature that we haven't really got figured out yet. Part of the reason is we don't really know where the storm sewer is at. And like I said, we got some future meetings this week, right?
Yeah, and just to add to that, we actually were out on site today, kind of looking for the existing manhole structure that, through looking at some of the as-built drawings and everything, is located somewhere within that dam embankment. We actually had two potential manholes that we've identified that could be still existing. Going out there today, we kind of eliminated the possibility of there being two. All indications are that that existing manhole is near that the observation deck to the apartment parking lot there. From what we could tell, it actually looks like that manhole is right up, right where your cursor is there, just right under the deck. So we found that out today. That's still kind of locating that might require us, removing a little bit of that deck to see what's underneath. But right now, the main goal is to figure out what kind of inverts are coming in and out of that structure to determine how we can modify that outlet pipe and still provide service to the city. So.
Just another little complication. It's the third item I wanted to bring up, and this is good for the other news wasn't so good. Last month that I worked with Don and Amanda, and Amanda was able to secure funding for the bridge abutments. As you recall, the DNR was not going to fund the bridge. The significant portion of the bridge construction cost is going to be involved in the abutments. Amanda worked her hand.
Well, Rick, I didn't secure additional funding. I just got the approval that we can use our current funding if we need to. So just to clarify.
That's still good news, though, right?
Right, yep.
So it's not necessarily funding that we've already allocated. It's some funding that may be available if we need it. Is that right?
Right, so, you know, depending on how timing shakes out here and funds, because I know that the city has applied for other sources of funding, you know, we're kind of the second choice. So like, if you get other funds, obviously we'd want to use them to utilize those for the bridge if we can, but if nothing else comes through or if the timing doesn't work out, we can use our funds.
Okay.
Or the abutments.
Right. That's a nice feature for us to build as we're building the rapids. That way, the only thing that will be left is for the city to secure another funding source to find a bridge that would simply need to be picked up and dropped into place, over the top with a newly constructed rapids. So, that's a nice bit of good news. Now, the only other thing I want to mention about that is in order to do this, we also need to do some geotechnical exploration, and that work is going to be done not this week, but the next week. In order to design our abutments, we do need some geotechnical work done, including soil borings, and those will be done next week. So that will enable Wes here to do the final design of the abutments. It will take some time for the results of the soil testing to come through, but we expect to get those, probably end of January, maybe middle of January if we're lucky. So we just want to know we're going to take the design as far as we can now, but there's going to be some final adjustments made when we get the results of that geotechnical study. One other thing we wanted to inform you about is we do plan, and John, this is probably where you can bring up another drawing I have. Thank you. In discussions with the DNR on yesterday, after we found out these other complications are going to delay the construction of the rapids, we talked about does it make sense for us to do the excavations in the upstream areas, that we have designed to do the backwater pool areas. These are shown in red here. So our intent is to get those constructed this winter yet. So we'll get a contract to do that work along with seeding in the areas that will now become permanent uplands. So those two items will be bid this winter yet. So that at least that part will be done this winter, and we're trying to make some of that pool area look much bigger than what it looks like now. But, so that's a new plan to share with you. So we do plan on doing some construction yet this winter. Third thing, related to that, we talked to Amanda and Howard about setting, how to set the elevation of the water in the river during this coming summer and fall till we get this rapids put in, and they are receptive to look at putting maybe a few stop logs in place just to kind of recreate what the pool might look like once the rapids are in. Right now, we think the water is probably a little bit lower than where we want to have it permanently. We are considering that, this summer, fall, we can raise that pool a bit. Lastly, before I take any questions, Amanda has put together a letter. I don't think it's went out yet, but she is going to send the private landowners along the stream bank that would like to put in their own trees and vegetation, seeding. So, man, I don't know if you want to explain any more about when you plan that to go out, but,
I'll send it on to the city first and, if they want, and it's just basically offering any upstream landowners, whether it's, quote unquote new land, trees or, either native grass or wildflower mixtures to plant. And the idea is that we want to get that planted, before we get the spring melt and seeds in the seed bank get, kind of a jump on that. So we wanted to get that done right away. So I'm hoping to get those sent out first of the year and then hopefully have an idea by the end of January, beginning of February, so we can work with the watershed or the Soil and Water Conservation District to make sure we get all the trees ordered that anybody's interested in. So the first step is to kind of send those letters out and gauge how much interest there is, and then work with those that aren't interested in identifying our budget and those kinds of things.
thanks, Amanda.
Yep.
Amanda, Howard, last, if I forgot anything to let the council know about, but if you don't have anything else, we'd certainly entertain any questions you may have.
Yeah, Rick, this is Brett Frazier. Did I hear you correctly? All the funding has been secured for the bridge abutments?
I'm gonna let Amanda explain it.
So with the timing that with our original timeline, there was some need to stabilize the site as we're constructing the rest. So we got approval then to put in the abutments as a stabilization instead of putting in something more temporary and then having to rip it out. But if we move forward and our timeline aligns, see if you guys get that bonding money for the bridge and that covers the abutments. Because we're gonna probably likely be short if we include all that we need to do. And so if it aligns that bonding money, you get the bonding money and we're constructing at the same time, then we would use the bonding money for the abutments. If it doesn't align that way, we're gonna have to get, well, depending on what the cost estimate comes in, we might need to get additional funds. A lot. And that's something, like I've said before, we'll figure out. I mean, we're committed to this thing. It's not anything that the city should worry about.
So Mayor, in short, I guess the short answer is yes, we'll have funding one way or the other. And we still don't have money for the actual bridge itself, the superstructure. That part we haven't got figured out yet.
Okay, thank you.
That's something we're kind of working on with Todd.
Council have any other questions?
I've talked to some property owners that went through the process of turning in their abstract, and then they got it back, but there was no notification of where, so they don't know anything more now after they got their abstract back than when they gave it to them. So there may be property owners out there that don't know that they should be thinking about planting grass and trees or that kind of thing. So I don't know if that was something that fell through when we went through the legal change or what, but I know they said that they got their abstract back, but there was no finding or clarification as to what they need to do to go forward. So I don't know if we need to maybe go through that process again, or if we need to contact the property owners.
So part of this letter that I'm sending out for the plantings will have a map of what Greg, the attorney, had found. And so it'll kind of detail where, like if you drew the property line straight up to where the water will be, it'll kind of detail that adjacent to their parcel. From what I understand from the lawyer, is it's up to each landowner to legally change their abstract if they choose to. And maybe I'm not, is that what you guys remember, Howard and Rick?
Yeah, that was my understanding too, was
basically, when the time comes and the property owner sells his property and wants to go through the abstract again, that's when you would change your legal. But it was, what they were basically looking at in any of those abstracts is, was there a defined line where it cuts off? But most of them say, it goes to the water's edge, but any of that would get changed. Unless you wanted to go through the process, you could get it changed now and cover any cost, but it's better just to wait until you would sell your property and have your abstract changed then, so. So I don't know if we need to let the property owners, if they're gonna be sent out a letter, but is that gonna be clarified to them in that letter, or?
Just in that letter is gonna be about there's basically trees and seeds for grass seed for native plantings available at no cost to them. They would still have to do the planting themselves, but DNR is covering the cost for any of that, so there's potential, like we could, because we've got to send that letter through you guys first or have it reviewed. There's something maybe if we feel like or if you guys feel like there's maybe should be something in there. Amanda, could we put just a line in there just in regards to that?
I think that's something we should have, because that's a legal thing and that should come from the attorney.
Okay.
I don't feel comfortable, I don't have the expertise to say that exact process. And he's told me that in talking to him, but if you think that's something we should have done, then I think that should come from Greg, if we can still get him. I understand he's...
Could there be a packet put together with both items?
Yeah, I think that may be a good idea, so we're not bothering more than once.
Well, I think part of the deal was, at the time that Greg was finishing up this work, he also was discontinuing his legal work for the city, so I don't think it'll be Greg Larson. I think the new city attorney would have to kind of pick up that.
And Greg sent an email to us all, detailing everything, specifically what he thought, but maybe we do need to draft a specific letter.
Well, let's go, we'll review that email, that last part that Greg sent, and look and see, because from that, we might be able to put something from the city and actually have our city attorney review it and then send it out.
Yeah.
Maybe if it came off the same time so people...
Yes.
I just don't think it should come from the DNR. I don't think that's...
No, I agree. So we'll look at that, Amanda, and try and time it so that we can get a letter drafted and you can send out your letter at the same time.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Any other questions?
Yeah, does the Historical Society have an issue with moving peak across the river, or no?
No, that wasn't concerned. They just wanted a more detailed plan than what we expected to do. They had also a plan on how is the restoration going to be done, what's the sequence of things. So, I can see maybe we're probably going to need I imagine there could be a possibility that we want to store peat off site somewhere for a while. That's so we can get the construction done without people running into them. And also at the same time, maybe the restoration work could be done off-site too. So, those are the things that these experts, I think, will have to help us with. And Chippewa will have their input. In fact, I think they have a 30-day review period to look at the whole planning process. So it doesn't sound like a big deal to us, but it's a big deal to them.
Anyone else? No more questions?
What are they gonna do exactly this winter? Are they gonna dredge these pools out?
Correct.
Okay, and that's the only thing you're gonna do this winter?
Yes, and the seeding will be done this spring, when the ground is still frozen, but snow-free is what I'm thinking here.
So the exposed ground, the black ground that's out there right now, is to get some native seeds on that, so we can get that seed bank going instead of having it all come up into, undesirable plants that we want and stuff too. So.
Okay.
Any other questions? Looks like there's no more questions, Rick.
Okay. Well, thanks for having us, and we'll talk before that. Hope everyone has a Merry Christmas.
Okay, thank you kindly.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 8 is a MidDOT 2024 street project discussion. We have Tom Pelican and Travis Weaver here with us this evening. We have to recess at 6 o'clock for our hearing, but can you get her done in that time?
I hope so.
Okay. Okay, take her away, guys.
Our goal will be done by 5:15. Does that work? No, thank you, Mayor and Council. Nice to see you guys again. Yeah, we just will come down again. From the last time we were here, we talked a lot about the processes and the planning, the partnership of the city and MnDOT, and since then we've been working hard to add the changes that we want for the downtown portion. That's so. I'm not going to babble on here too long, but we just wanted. Not sure what the council wants to see. You want a full-blown presentation, everything again, or do you just want a high-level look at the layout? Why exactly are we here? I know you guys asked us to come down here again. Okay.
I'll jump.
Sure.
I'm the one that asked to come down here just because at the last meeting, there was a motion that was made, a second that was not the same as the original motion, and nobody really understood I mean, there were numbers thrown at us at that meeting that we hadn't heard before. For example, a 2-inch median.
Mm-hmm.
That last meeting was the first time I heard that.
Yep.
So, we approved a project that I have no clue what we approved. So I would love an overview of.
I think we can do
It can be a mile
walkthrough. Yep.
overview, but I'd like.
Sure.
I left with more questions even after I asked the questions, but I think we did a disservice by acting so quickly last time because there were numbers that we hadn't heard of before.
That sounds fantastic. Travis, you
I
walk
think
through
we
the
can
layout.
certainly walk through the layout.
Mayor, Don.
One of the things that maybe, for starters, would be very easy for Travis basically brought these handouts and put them before you. And maybe what you should do is just explain these.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that they kind of get an idea of, in a general sense, what we're looking at prior to all this detail up here.
So, the intent of this overview was to just give a snapshot, because the layout, in all its detail, conveys that same information, the sidewalks, the shared use paths, where parking is, where it isn't, but I thought it would be nice, and we're on page 2, the first page is the parking locations, which shows essentially the side of the street that parking is allowed on. And as we walk through, a lot of this is a 3-lane section where we have parking on one side and maybe not on the other, especially for 59. When you look at the shared use paths, unfortunately, I see on South 59 on the west side, that shared use path actually goes all the way to 5th. There is a little bit of an error there. I don't know why that didn't print. But its intent is to show, really the limits of the sidewalk and where the parking is, and then for the sidewalk itself, also the width of it. Whether it's an 8-foot shared use path or a 6-foot sidewalk designation. And they have some nuances in there in what they can be used for, some offsets too that go with that. So I'll get this updated, Don, and back to you in a PDF form that shows that sidewalk on the west side of 59 all the way to South 5th as well. And so you can have that in a PDF form. But this was just intended to kind of give that snapshot so you don't have to go kind of scrambling through this larger. This is an 8-foot by 3-foot, and I printed one out for Don too, and brought that along. But maybe if we start on the south end of the project, Don, and just kind of zoom in a little bit, we can go from South 5th to, and we can kind of walk through in the next. It's a pretty big file.
Technology doesn't want to work today.
Well, we'll see what we can do. So at the project limits, we are constructing all the way to 5th Avenue South. And essentially we have a 3-lane section. So we have the 2 lanes in each direction. We have a middle left turn lane. And then from 5th all the way to the roundabout at East 108. We have parking on the east side. So we have basically the southbound lane, a center left turn lane, the northbound lane, and then parking as we go from west to east in this. And because of the width differential from Fifth, we have to taper it back down to the existing section near the, basically the entrance to the school is really the limits there. On each side through this section, we have the 8-foot shared use path going on either side of 59 all the way up to the roundabout. We've talked a lot in detail on the downtown section, and that's what we described at the last council meeting. We have the roundabouts that are the same size as the ones that were described in St. James that we saw the pictures of last time. The difference here now is, you know, we've got building face to building face, we've got 80 feet essentially. So from curb to curb now, it's a little bit different section than we've talked about in months past. So we have 9-foot parking on both sides. We have 12-foot driving lanes, and then we have a 4-foot, 2-inch high median, very mountable median through the center that ties to each roundabout. There's an opening in the middle where the crosswalk in that driveway is. But otherwise, it's just a very, almost like a mini speed bump that goes through the center section. The rest is 8-foot shared use paths, and that's really just a designation that's so far off the building faces so that doors can swing, and then there's also room behind the back of curb before we get to that 8 feet, so that you have benches, room for light signing, things like that, so you still have the clear walkway through there. So that's the section through downtown with the mini roundabouts on either side of that. As we go further north, so from West 108 all the way, we can stop essentially at City Hall here, essentially. We'll go through that section. It's the same section as we saw down south. So the 3-lane section, a southbound, a center left turn lane, a northbound, and then parking on the east side of the road. There is no parking on the west side. That's been removed, and then we have the 8-foot shared use path going all the way up on both sides, and then on the east side, it stops just north of City Hall. It doesn't extend. That sidewalk, decisions were made just from feasibility and then use that we weren't going to extend cost, extend the sidewalk on the east side north of, I believe that's Fifth, correct? Or to zoom in. So it's the 3-lane section, sidewalk on both sides from the roundabout all the way to just north of City Hall. The 3-lane section continues all the way past 8th, past the turkey plant, and then we do continue the shared use path on the west side all the way north. And it's still that same 3-lane section. So we have southbound, center left, northbound. In this case, we have a shoulder. It's set up for potential parking in the future. The decision is we don't want parking on either side in front of the turkey plant. And so right now, it's just designated as no parking. But there's certainly that same 10-foot parking ability if it's desired in the future on that east side, but it's shown for layout purposes as no parking there. Once we get north of, oh, there we go, wow.
It caught up.
Yes. There we go. All right. This will help. We can hopefully pan. Maybe. Oh, there we go. We go the other way.
Yeah. So how far up were you?
We were all the way, basically in front of the turkey plant. We're all the way up to 8. So you can see that's just shown. Yes.
So I can share my screen.
No, I know we've got it now. Now we're good. We're zoomed in. So you can kind of see it now more clearly what we have for the different lane configurations, southbound, center left, the through lane north, and then a 10-foot shoulder could be designated for parking. So with the width we have up here, there's a lot more boulevard space. So we've got the 8-foot shared use path that continues, but then there's going to be a lot of green space between basically the back of curb and the sidewalk itself. Allows us to make all those grades. As we proceed further north, you can see as we come up to where that historical marker, the roadside marker is, up near County Road 9. So we continue the 3-lane section essentially all the way to the new connection to County Road 9 that's going to get realigned. So it's got better, squares up better with 59 now. It's got better sight distance, turn lanes, everything. It's been improved from a safety standpoint. So we're going to carry the shared use path essentially all the way up to County Road 9, and then there's a little bit of ability for pedestrians to get up to that roadside marker. And then I think the shared use path is potential for going north all the way up to the old bowling alley that now serves, I think, as a mosque. So I don't know if the decision is made that that's going to be included, because I think that would be completely city costs. So this kind of shows then the reconnection of County Road 9. Is on 59, as we go north there, it essentially just tapers down to that existing rural section as we get, further north as we head right on the page here. Any questions on the 59 configuration? Now that we're zoomed in, it's a little bit easier to see what it looks like.
Can you go back to the 959 definition? So where the multi-use path crosses 9, right there?
Yep.
So currently, per the project parameters, it would end right there on the west side of 9?
Yes.
So to cross and go out to the mosque would be city cost?
It's probably county cost.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be county cost, yeah.
So do we have to get county approval for that? Or how
Yeah, we would, yeah.
I have a question in that same area, if it's okay. Will there be a speed reduction from the T down into town, or will it remain as it is a 60 through that section?
It'll still be 60 through that section.
It'll still be 60, okay.
MnDOT would have to do a speed study to change any of the places where the speed, limit would change essentially. And so that would have to happen after the fact, is our understanding. They'd have to, after it was constructed and there was a desire to change where those limits were, there would have to be additional traffic studies that would be done once it was all in place.
I think there was some feeling with the paintings on the roadway and everything else and the narrowing of the lanes in there, that would kind of suggest that people would slow down. So then, on top of doing the speed study, ultimately we hope that the speed would change.
So the blue portion, the blues, those are just shoulders?
Those are just shoulders, yep.
When you go back down here and see these 10-foot shoulders that are purple, kind of one of the thoughts was there about having them just 10-foot shoulders as opposed to bringing the curb out or whatever. It had something to do with, because this is all commercial zone for the city, we didn't want that to be affected should this kind of transform into a commercial corridor, and we wanted to have parallel parking, there'd be space to do that in the future. So there was one of the reasons why that was kind of left the way it was too. Then when you get back down here, you end up seeing the parallel parking between 6th across from the restaurant.
So basically, this project then goes to the entrance of the elementary school.
Essentially, yes. Yep. That's where the end of the taper would be. Yep, on the very south end. If we want to look at 108, I think it's just to scroll down, 108 runs same way, and then we can start on the left side here. I think that's the downtown, yep. There we go. So the project begins just west of 9th Street, and then it'll be that same, it's just a reconstruction of that same 2-lane section that's essentially there with 2-foot shoulders, 12-foot driving lanes. The addition that is of note is that we're going to have the 8-foot shared use path. It goes all the way out to, there we go, all the way out to 8th Street on the south side. So the shared use path in the rural section west of town will only be on the south side. And then as this section transition or continues to the east as we get towards town, you'll see that the sidewalk begins, or the shared use path begins on the north side at, I think, if you keep going, go the other way down.
This way?
Yep, go that way. So it's the same section, the same essentially rural section will have the shared use path. And once we get to 3rd then, and get more towards the town section, then we'll have the shared use path on both sides. But it will end on the north side at 3rd. Through this section as well, we are going to just have parking on the north side. Through here as we get in and then go past the lumber yard as well. The big issue, and we had a field walk with MnDOT and city staff, this was an area of primary concern. There's a lot of building entrances that are driveways as well. So it's not just pedestrian usage. And because these buildings essentially abut the property line, if we were to have parking or push this back and push that curb line down another 10 feet or so, it would be almost impossible to be able to have a driveway and still make ADA grades. Be able to get into the buildings so that their vehicles could load or whatnot, and then also have the shared use path and sidewalk through there. And so I think there's probably a couple spots that are currently there that won't be in the future once this is constructed, to really allow us to have the pedestrian path through there and then have reasonable access from those driveways coming into those buildings. And then as we head further east, as we get towards the downtown section, this is similar to the downtown section of the 108 West section. We'll have that same parking on both sides, 12-foot driving lanes. We don't have the median in this section at all, but the 8-foot shared use paths on both sides as well. Any questions on 108 West? Just down and to the right will take us. So once we move past the roundabout through this section, it's a lot tighter right-of-way. Here we only have 66 feet of right-of-way, which is the reason we don't have shared use paths. We had to go with a 6-foot walk in this area if we wanted to maintain parking on either side, as well as the 12-foot driving lane. So essentially we tried to accommodate as much parking as possible. There's a lot of driveways near the bank here, different things, so there's a lot of pedestrian activity. So some of the parking gets kind of moved or manipulated based on the roundabout entrances, and then as we move further to the east, we continue to have parking on both sides of the road until we get just before, I think, 2nd and a half here. We move that in near the houses here on the east side, move the curb line in a little bit. We've got a lot of walking, crossing with the nursing home. The pool is right there. Wanted to shorten the crossing distance. And then once, I think, the decision was made that there was the need for a little bit more on-street parking as we headed further east. And so that comes back into play, but again, it kind of comes in and out. And then as we head further east, the 6-foot walks carry all the way to 6th, I think, on the north side, and then they continue all the way to Ann Lane on the south side as we get back into that rural section and then taper back down once we've tied into Ann Lane. And those mirror, so the 8th to 5th on 59 are the same limits as the utility reconstruction, and then from 3rd all the way to Ann Lane on 108 is the same limits as the water and sewer reconstruction as well.
So each of the crosswalks, those are bump outs?
Yes.
Those between the...
Yep, right there. Yep. And we've stepped through where they all exist, where they're needed. And so East 108 has an abundance of them with the activity, especially on the north side.
Good. Okay.
And one thing to note, on 108 East, there are no shared use paths being constructed. We don't have room for shared use path plus the buffers. Those will just be sidewalks on both sides of 108 going to the east. 108 to the west, we have room for shared use paths. On 59 north and south, we do, but not 108 going east.
What's that, 4 crosswalks?
There's, and 108 east.
In between Ann Lane and
Yes.
4 or 5.
There's
In between Ann Lane and basically
Between the pool.
Well, right here.
Yeah,
By the post office, all the way to the pool, there's 4 right here to accommodate all the people walking the pool, but also the parking for Pelican Valley that happens on this side of the street.
But all 4 of those crosswalks then will have bump outs built into the street.
Yes, and they bump out here, so it's shorter. The same with there, we bump out. Those are both bumped out, so all of the crosswalks.
The bump outs aren't very wide,
No.
probably 4 to 5 feet.
Yep.
They're not 10 feet like people think they are.
They don't get right into the driving lane, there still is a little bit of buffer, and plus the gutter pan. So it's, from the edge of the driving lane, it's at least 4 feet to the gutter face, so it doesn't, encroach into the driving lane like that.
So those bump out, those 4 plus the bump out down on Main Street, in between the roundabouts, are they all 4 inches high? Or
The curbs, or
Well,
what?
The bump outs
Bump outs.
themselves, the height.
Oh, those would be typical, well, I mean, they're gonna be ADA, I mean, they'll have the curb ramps. In the curb and gutter, for the curb height throughout the rest of this is 6-inch high curb, the standard curb that you would typically see in any, urban section. The only place that we have 4-inch curb height would be at the roundabouts on the median, if you go to the roundabout here. So everywhere along the corridor is a typical 6-inch curb. When we get to the splitter islands at the roundabouts for some distance, those are probably going to be 4-inch curb height, very mountable, but 4-inch. The center island, that's 2-inch. Once we get into the 4-foot median through the downtown section, that will be 2-inch curb height, or it's essentially just sloped concrete, but it won't really be a curb.
So the center point of the roundabout is 2 inches high?
The center point of the roundabout, it'll be graded so it drains a little bit, but from the edge of the road to the island itself, or to the circle, will be 2 inches higher and then slightly sloped, just like a regular intersection would, to drain away.
So the curb, just the curb portion of the bump outs for the crosswalk is a 6-inch curb.
Yes, the curb portion is, but it will have the ADA accessible ramps, yes.
But, well,
Yeah.
not on the side, right?
No, yeah, once you're outside the ramps, it'll be 6 inches high.
The bump outs are really a nice safety feature for people crossing the streets. People see them. It's a lot safer for pedestrians and bikers. So people see them standing there, so they'll slow down. They will slow down coming into town too. There's a traffic, safety, mobility component to it, so. Yeah, they're kind of paying for maintenance, we get that. But as far as, pedestrian safety, they're great for that, so.
And the plan is to have another public input meeting in probably early February. Now that we've got the layout pretty well finalized, we'd come back to the public and essentially do a much more in-depth walkthrough, I think it'll be an in-person and online, so there'll be a presentation aspect of it, as well as a chance to have several of those roll plots and personnel from the engineering team, the consultant, and MnDOT to be there to answer questions on any of the traffic, any of the layout, anything like that, on what can be expected. Hope to have some visualizations of, from like existing drone photos that we took with some of this overlay, so you can get a sense of really what it'll look like in the downtown. Is our hope to have that by early February as well, once we come back.
Nothing really, so what's the 108 right there?
So that's just going to essentially, we need enough room to have the splitter island, and then as soon as we can tie back in, we'll be done. So it'll only go as far west as we need to tie in for grades or anything like that. And, from a layout standpoint, it ties into the existing, what's there. This could vary once we get into final design a little bit, just once we make sure those grades tie together, but it's really going to be just dictated by when everything ties back together after the roundabout to the west.
All the curbs are 6 inches, the center median is 2 inches, but the splitter things?
Yeah, on each quadrant, or each leg. Those are going to be 4, but mountable,
So
yeah.
you'll go from 2 to 4 inches slope
Mhm.
on the center median.
Yes.
What's that yellow hash mark across up the?
That is the bridge. That's just to designate where the existing bridge is. But that won't actually be reconstructed. That's going to have a different sort of, just probably, I think it'll get milled and overlaid.
Yeah. Yeah, the same shared path will go across the bridges on both sides as well. And we're also planning on doing the bridge railing on top of it, make a more decorative railing on top of the bridge there now, so.
Any other questions?
There's a couple things I'll bring up first, so yet.
Can I ask one? Yeah. On the map, what do you refer to this green space right here? Is this?
What is it referred to?
Yeah.
It's essentially just the buffer behind the back of curb. That's where, I don't know that it has a necessary designation, it's essentially median between the sidewalk and the back of curb. So that'll be for any lights, signing, you know, if there's room for benches, depending on, you know, city-owned benches, those things.
A couple next steps in addition to, you know, the public meeting is working on our cost layout. Like where obviously everything has to be paid for, so we've worked on this already for quite a while here, you know, the shared use path, who's going to pay for what, and the sidewalk, who's paying for what, and everything else. So that's being worked on in the background. In a couple of months, we'll be back here again with a cost participation resolution. We'll present to the city with our layout, where the city will look at the cost and enter, again, sign off on agreement to partner with MnDOT based on the cost portion of it. So that's probably the next big step that the city will have to entertain with MnDOT and the county as well. Both will enter an agreement with MnDOT based on the cost participation of the project. So it'll be a lot, you know, between MnDOT share, the city share, and the county share. We're also looking at encroachments that are on the right-of-way. We're looking at all the tree removals that are impacted. Basically, every tree on MnDOT right-of-way in the city will be removed as part of the project to build the shared use path, to build a sidewalk. And so it'll probably be a separate contract, either a separate contract or MnDOT Forces will do it based on the timing of the letting this job is January of 2024. And the only time we can cut down trees is in the winter months of November through March based on the environmental guidelines and rules. So we can't do it with the project. It'll be done ahead of time. So trees will probably be cut down winter of 23-24, either by MnDOT Forces or a separate contractor will be cutting all the trees down that are impacted for the project, which are basically every tree in the city on MnDOT right away will come down for this project. I think it covers most everything. Like Travis mentioned, we have we'll get a public meeting scheduled sometime probably early February, find a location for that and present us to the public and keep working on the layout and then work on design. So next spring we'll have our first iteration of the plan set. It'll probably come June, I suppose, May and June. You know, this job is done, you know, within 2 years the plan is completely done. So we have a lot of work to do in the next, basically a year and a half, the plans are done. You know, and that's all designed, so a lot of work to do on this project. And we're meeting tomorrow morning with Houston to talk about the dam project and impacts to this project, you know, for some of those issues for that part of it. So, you know, a lot of stuff in the background that's being worked on, so it's constantly moving. So a lot of details to go through, walls to avoid, trees to cut down, you know, a lot of things on MnDOT property to remove, you know, fences and steps, that sort of thing. Property owners, every property owner along the corridor will be impacted. We'll acquire temporary easement from every single property in the whole entire town along our corridor, so that's going to be a huge part of it to get limits established and environmental impacts as well as, you know, the CADX document, which his crew's working on. So lighting is a big issue we're working through with Ontario Power in the city, get that figured into this project as well, and so yeah, lots of things we're working on. But any more questions? You know, we're here to help. We're not very far away.
For your public meeting to be at high school?
Don't know yet. We haven't talked to people, see what's available, and yeah, we'll know that in the very near future. So, yeah, we're still meeting monthly as our project management team group every, I think, a third Thursday or whatever, second Thursday, whatever day it is. We're meeting as a big group. We're meeting constantly on the sides and with Travis and his crew and anybody else that needs work. And you know, we're always welcome to come. Bill come down here anytime he wants to come down here. We will to answer questions. And there will be a lot of questions, you know, for this project and moving forward. Roundabouts are something we're working on, trying to design to fit a little bit better, but they're fit pretty good now. You know, a lot of people, you know, a lot of issues with a sign like a Bell Bank there is probably to be moved. I think that's going to be in the way of our church's path around the corner there. But there's a lot of right-of-way encroachments to work through. That's a big piece for those limits and right-of-way encroachments and impacts and environmental issues. So, but we're moving. You know, we're still on track to build this thing in 24 and 25. So.
Quick question, does it look like it'll be the center retail block will be shut down for 2 summers?
No, it will not. The staging part of it is we're going to do the downtown, the very first phase. So probably May, June of 24, we'll tackle the downtown piece. We'll build a roundabout, we'll do everything in between the downtown portion first, and then they'll open back up afterwards. So the job will be built in stages throughout the project. We're looking at doing Highway 59 the first year, then the one-way to the second year. That's kind of our staging that we're looking at doing. But always we'll have access to businesses at all times, whether it's walking or whatever it is to get there at all times. So, but there will be detours, obviously, for trucks and large machinery to get around there. But.
Yeah, because like way on the north end, like run the motel, and I was just wondering, how are you going to grant access when that street is torn up? Because there is really no access around there. You know, you've got 8th, but the only access is a minimum maintenance behind the turkey plant. And the other side is going to be through the discontinued section that Eggy's used for the alley. Honestly, if the street's gone, I mean, I'm just wondering what's going to be created there.
Sometimes, you know, we haven't vetted all that out, but in that area, if there's no other access, you might have like even one-way directional traffic in like the boulevard where the shared use path is going to go as a way to maintain access if the entire street's going to be tore up. But, you know, there's creative ways to just make sure that, especially with the width that we have up north, we have a little bit more right-of-way, it's going to be easier to maintain even some temporary routes and have access within MnDOT's right-of-way, and then clean it up afterwards. So it's a good point up there because there isn't access to the west. It kind of dead ends, or you'd have to go through the turkey plant. So, yeah. But I know that we've got the boulevard room, especially if the trees are gone already, to make, you know, a temporary frontage road essentially.
Okay. Yeah. Of course, the big piece is to, you know, replacing the city water and sewer down below, which is deep. You know, it's 15 to 20 feet deep down there, so the road is going to be tore up, you know, pretty wide through the whole thing. It's a very slow process to build these projects. So that's why it's taken 2 years to do it. So, but yeah, we're going to work, you know, with the locals and business owners and try to make sure people are still open throughout the process. So anyways, I'm rambling. Sorry, Mayor. So.
Any more questions for the gentleman before? Hearing none, thank you, gentlemen, for being with us this evening, and we'll see you in the future. Item number 9 is food fair. We got Emily Livinger and Emily Reno with us here this evening, and they're coming with us a proposal of a date, correct?
Yeah. So, for the record, so my name's Ellie Litzinger. Thank you for allowing me and Emily to speak during the city council meeting. Before I continue with the proposal, I want to make sure if it's all right if Emily also takes the time to update you on our local foods, local places where we're doing while we're at it too.
Yeah, we have to break.
Yeah, we are going to get out of here in 14 minutes. Don't you worry. Keep it fast.
All right, so the Local Foods, Local Places Steering Committee wants to hold a healthy food fair during the spring of 2022. We want to hold it either Saturday, April 23rd or Sunday, April 24th. That's the weekend after Earth Day 2020. So we want to hold it at Sharon Memorial Park because there's a large amount of parking, and you know there's the stage too. And it's also used for the International Friendship Festival each year. So we figured it'd be the perfect place to do it. it's, start having such a large outdoor venue. So we're still trying to figure out activities, but I figured one thing we could do is a blender bike where the blender is controlled by bicycle power. I'm talking to a partnership for health to see if there is one we can borrow from them, but if not, I can ask anybody who's handy with their own two hands if they want to try to make their own, because this would be a lot cheaper than renting or buying one, because that would cost between $300 to $1,700. But if we make one ourselves, I did the math, and if we made one ourselves, it'd be like around $30. We want 2 pictures for the blender bike, one for dairy milks and one for non-dairy milks for people who are vegan or have dairy allergies to prevent cross-contamination issues. And like I said, this is still in the planning stages, but I want to bring forth the proposal. So now before we get closer to April.
So you're looking to reserve those 2 dates in the Sharon Park?
We would just need one day.
Just for 1 day?
Yeah. We're thinking either Saturday, April 23rd, or Sunday, April 24th.
Danielle, we don't have any park reservations that are under doing. Okay.
That was my question, is how is it going to affect camping?
Yeah. We can't guarantee all the snow is going to be melted.
Yeah, a blizzard, that
Council? Is that a motion?
Sure.
I have a motion, is there a second? Let's have a second first. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion second, discussion.
My question was, for this event, are you going to need water in the park? Because we typically don't turn the water on over there this early.
Depending on the situation, most likely. We can try to figure out other sources of water we can bring in, though.
Yeah, I don't know the capability of even turning the water on that early.
Right.
Just to know.
All right, then the reason why I put forth those 2 dates is it'll be the day after, it'll be the weekend after Earth Day. So doing stuff for the Earth and stuff would still be fresh in people's mind. And when it comes to healthy food and local foods, it helps keep sustainability when it comes to food production, because you don't have to do any long-term shipping cost, and it's grown right in town, so you don't have to worry about so it's like the freshest food possible.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried.
All right, thank you, and I'm gonna pass the mic to Emily Reno now.
Hey, everybody. I guess we're in good evening mode at this point. I just wanted to provide a quick update on some of the things that the Local Foods, Local Places Steering Committee has been doing for the last 5 months. I think the last time that I presented was in July, and that was just to kind of give you a sense of what the group has been working on. And I think it's a good practice to just be, informing the city and the city council of what we've been up to. So that's all that I wanted to plug in addition to Ellie's work. So first of all, just wanted to express gratitude for the city's support of the work that we do. It's super important, and we wouldn't, be where we are today without that. So thank you. I also, for anybody who might be calling in, who's in the audience today that isn't familiar with it, the Local Foods, Local Places Steering Committee is trying to figure out the ways in which to use local foods as a tool for economic development and neighborhood revitalization. That's pretty much the whole premise behind what we do. So the last time that I was here, some of the things that we had been talking about were stuff that was kind of in flux, sort of in the queue, but not necessarily set in stone. One of those did end up becoming a thing. So I shared with you Ellie's job description, and it was funded. And so she's here now, which is awesome. And it's been really great to have her working with us since September. We had submitted a grant for the USDA's Beginning Farmer Rancher Development Program to start an incubator farm. That was not funded. And then I had also provided an overview of a job description for an AmeriCorps Vista position, which was also not funded. We had asked for approval to include the city's letter of support in a submission to the Smithsonian exhibit that would highlight innovative small towns across America. We haven't heard anything back from them, but it also isn't going to start until 2023, so I don't think there's a huge rush on that. So some of the big accomplishments of this group since July, we have had another student working with us. Her name is Lily. She worked with us over the summer with the farmers market, and she's actually been working with us remotely 5 hours a week while she's in Morris. And so this semester, what she worked on was developing an outreach and communication strategy for the steering committee. And the idea was to provide detailed recommendations of how we could reach a broader audience within the community, how we could engage more volunteers, and really partner to expand the capacity of the group and really implement the goals that are outlined in the action plan. Ellie started serving with the Welcome Place through Minnesota Green Corps in September. She hit the ground running to organize our first ever community food tour, which you might have seen featured in the Pelican Press. I thought it was a really awesome opportunity to onboard Ellie to all of the work that we've been doing and really to shine light on our local businesses and people who are doing work in this space. We did invite folks from Little Falls to come join us as a way of doing an exchange, because there is also a local foods, local places steering committee in Little Falls, Minnesota. So we did have one person come out to join us, and that was really lovely. And then we actually got to go to Little Falls and see some of the work that their steering committee is doing. So it was very cool to be able to compare, and I think that we took a lot away from it. A couple more things. We wrapped up the first year of the Pelican Farmers Market in October, and then they also hosted a pop-up holiday market at the Lighted Horse Parade in November, which, from what I hear, went over very well. And then we worked with Sourcewell to provide feedback on the local foods planning section for the comprehensive plan. We were really excited to see that have its own entire section. There were some things that we had already moved so quickly on that they were already outdated, so we just kind of helped provide minor revisions to update that. So in terms of what this group is moving on, right now, I think that we're working as a steering committee to identify what our priorities are for this upcoming year, make sure that what we had identified before is still relevant, or if we kind of want to switch things up. We're exploring the possibility of organizing an informational and, I'd like to think, inspirational event in early 2022 at the library about what an incubator farm actually is, or how a community commercial kitchen would work or be financially feasible. Ellie's going to be working on helping plan for this healthy food fair in the spring, and I have a personal stretch goal for myself to write a job description and somehow get funding for a 3 to 5 year position that will work in Pelican Rapids as a local foods coordinator. So still working on that, but I'm happy to entertain any questions that you might have about what we've been working on. Like I said, I don't want to say everything, because Ellie is she's working on an impact report right now, summarizing all the work that we've done over the last year, really putting some metrics in there that show what we've accomplished, and I'd love for her to be able to present in the future to kind of cover some of those things.
And one more thing. So I'm planning on hopefully presenting the impact report to the council. So sometime next month, during one of the meetings. I'm still there's still some kinks to work out, but I hope that I'll be able to do that next month.
Any questions for Emily or Ellie at this point? Any questions?
So are we going to get a report sometime on what the farmer's market has done?
Yes, that's going to be incorporated into the impact report. We did a specific survey of the farmers or the vendors, and that's going to be integrated into it. I don't have the results memorized, so I probably couldn't answer any questions off the top of my head.
Would you say that there was good emotional input? People feel excited about it still coming through its first season?
Yes, there was actually, okay, this is one thing that I do remember. Of the vendors who were surveyed, 100% said that they were likely to come back and sell the coming year, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, that's really good.
Very successful. Any other questions? Hearing none, thank you, ladies.
Thank you, thank you for having us.
Don, you got 4 minutes to spare to give your report? Can you sneak it in?
My report?
Yeah.
That got stuck.
Since the last meeting then, council meeting, we held a department head meeting, and Danielle and I worked to get this meeting set up and get everything on the agenda. I worked with Amy King and completed the Target Community Capital Program grant application and got that submitted. That's been a moving target. Attended the Comprehensive Steering Committee public informational meeting on December 2nd. Attended the monthly MnDOT 2024 project virtual meeting. Attended a special council meeting on December 9th. I was listening in today on the Capitol House Investment Committee joint hearing that they were having at the Capitol, just to see if they were going to be shedding any light. It was from like 2 to 4, so I wasn't on there for a grand amount of time, but I wanted to just listen in while I was working to see if it had anything to say about the capital projects that have been submitted, and it didn't. So I was only on there for about an hour, and then last thing is I met with Tom Pace and Brian Olson at the salt shed up here, and we'll be hearing more about that as the project progresses and everything in 2024. The state hasn't used that facility, that 4.5 acres, for quite a while. It's really just the city and the county. And so they talked to us about some potential options for the city with that property up there. So you'll hear more about that as it kind of grows. That's my report.
Any questions for Don?
Salt shed, is that 59?
Right, 59, where they have all the salt and sand. Yep, there's 4.5 acres up there that the state has no need for anymore.
Danielle, can you get item number 12 in due time?
Yep,
Resolution number 2021-27.
Yeah, we have to pass a resolution every year designating a polling place for next year. And so this is the resolution just designating City Hall here as the polling place for the residents of the city.
I move to approve resolution 2021-27.
Second. Motion second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. 1 minute, I can do mine in 1 minute. Item number 14, Mayor's report. Since this last meeting, I have met with a prospective small business owner regarding new business here in Pelican Rapids. Attended Pelican Rapids Comprehensive Plan Open House here at City Hall on December 2nd. Testified virtually before Minnesota House of Representatives Redistricting Committee on December 2nd. That was in regard to keeping Otter Tail County as a whole for a future legislative House and Senate district. That has not been finalized at this point, and it'll probably go to court before that is finalized. Attended a special City of Pelican Rapids Council meeting here on December 9th with the gentleman, and met on yesterday on December 13th with Administrator Solga to review the agenda for this afternoon's council meeting. Any questions? Hearing none. The time is now 6 p.m. and we are going to recess our city council meeting and go into truth and taxation hearing, which was scheduled at 6 p.m. Remember, during this time we could not make any motions And after this, we'll reconvene to approve the 2022 general budgets. So at this time, we'll go into our truth and taxation hearing. Don, did you have something to share before we go into that? Danielle?
Not really.
Okay. Anyone in the audience here regarding that topic? If you come to the podium and introduce yourself and your comments, please.
Sure. So I'm Ryan Bennick. We've met, I think, once before, and I know Stephen a little bit. I've stored some stuff at his place, but I'm the new owner of ICS Energy Solutions up the road at 1309 North Broadway. I bought the business from David Speedall, and I got my proposed tax bill in the mail within the last couple of weeks, and I had noticed that my city taxes are projected to go up 22.5%. Which I thought was pretty substantial. You know, I understand, you know, some normal increases and stuff, but that 22.5% was something beyond what I thought I understood, I guess. So I'm here tonight just to ask why and maybe where some of that's coming from for, you know, for starters, just so I understand it better.
Yeah, I think, to answer, I think there's a lot of people out there that probably have the same question. If they look at their property tax statements, and the city's portion of it went up basically for two main reasons. One of them is the city's portion of debt service on projects, street projects that we've done over the years. There was an increase needed in the special levy for that. And that increase was almost 27% by itself. But on top of that, the city council also decided to put in the general fund for the general budget, adding a economic development position, which we haven't hired yet, but we'll be trying to do sometime next year. And so the funding for that position is a new position for the city, and that increases the general levy 16%. So it's those two things that basically drove the increases that everybody's seeing for.
So is that commercial property, residential, everything
Yes.
gets assessed that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody citywide basically saw increases because of the general levy setting.
Okay. Am I just kind of late to the program here with this? It seems like there'd be a lot of people in here if they all saw 23% increases in their taxes, but maybe I'm just new to it.
It's possible that some people were, kind of listening in or kind of staying aware of the budget discussions that we were having at the time. I don't know, because we start this whole budget process and go through the council meetings in July, August, and so maybe some people were paying attention, or it's likely that nobody's paying attention to property tax. You are, and others obviously are, because we had some people question it, but most people don't.
Okay.
To be honest, they just don't look at it.
In regard to Ryan's question, Danielle, have you had any inquiries with City Hall?
I have not had any.
That's interesting.
Because I would like to chime in. I'm at like almost 40%, actually over 40%. And so I feel your pain, and that's why I was just wondering, is there...
Okay, you got it, okay, talk, I'd like you to introduce yourself.
Sorry. Joe Clausen, representing Pelican Motel, and I guess myself. My taxes have gone over 40% as well. And so I'm just wondering, is there any kind of equalization hearing? Is there any option? Or we love it, and we love it? And I guess that's the question. Because I think it's the same thing you're saying.
Obviously, the property tax is based on valuation.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is in April timeframe, you're able to, if you're challenging the valuation of your property, not the taxes, but the valuation of your property, which plays a role in your taxes.
Right.
If you want to challenge your valuation, that's something you basically do through Otter Tail County.
Otter Tail County, yep.
And that's in the springtime.
What about the city portions, I guess, because that was the section that was up over 40%.
That's when you, typically the way that works is when you basically challenge your valuation and you go through the county to do it, basically the county takes a look at your property and the valuation on your property. If they think and agree that adjustments should be made in your valuation, they bring that to the city council.
Okay.
At a equalization meeting before the city council, and that's where they'll, if they agree that maybe your valuation should be adjusted, they share with the city council what they did, based on the discussions they had with you, and then make recommendations to the city council if it should be higher, lower, whatever it should be. And then the council, if they approve the recommendation made by the county, and then the county readjusts your valuation, which plays a role in not just the city taxes, but all.
And so that takes place here at City Hall in April. The date hasn't been determined at this point.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely would be interested in that, because if you look at, typically in real estate, valuations are by price, what you purchase at, what the valuation of the land is at, and then you look at where it's now at. Yes, I think it's awesome that it's worth more, but I mean, that's a huge differentiation. Yes.
So you said the city went up 40%?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's half of that's valuation then?
Correct.
That's good for you.
Well, I mean, it means you're doing something right, but it's one of those things, it's like you get your hand slapped for doing something right, and so you just wonder, is there another way around it? So I guess that was my only thought. And I'm sure you're thinking the same thing.
Yeah, and my question wasn't so much about the valuation, because the valuation I felt was fair. I thought that number was fair, where everything else, it's a 3% here, it's 4% here, and then the city is 22.5% for me. You were even higher than that. And I guess it just surprises me that there aren't more people concerned about that, because it's such a jump. I would have understood 4% or 6% or even 8% or something, where, I'm dealing with crazy inflation in my business today anyhow. That would have made sense. 22 or 40 didn't make sense to me, so that's what I'm trying to understand. And I was aware of some of the stuff that you talked about, so I do understand, part of that. It just seems like an awful lot in 1 year. And I don't know, maybe it hasn't changed for 10 years. This is the first year I've owned this business. Maybe your taxes haven't changed in 10 years, and all of a sudden I'm getting 22.5%. It just happens to be my first year in business.
Yeah, and actually, the council, I know, was very concerned. We all were about taking on that much of an increase in 1 year. But part of the discussion that we had is Pelican Rapids, when other cities were doing double digits, when I say double, 10% or more, year after year, or for some years, Pelican has always stayed single digits, and I'd say low single digits.
Yeah.
So it was time to look at doing something, and the driver again is that economic development position. If it wasn't for that, you wouldn't see this. There would still be somewhat of an increase because of the special levy that we have to pay for the projects, obviously, but the main driver in the general levy is that position. And
I think that raised the budget 16% right there.
Yeah, for the general levy. As far as relief goes, should something change? I know that the community basically, I think, spoke very favorably about getting an economic development director hired. And so obviously it takes money to do that, and initially it's this hit. Hopefully, if we get somebody in place as soon as we possibly can, they're going to start hopefully doing things that make changes to Pelican Rapids for the better and growing Pelican Rapids. And the best way we can put anybody's property taxes in check is bring more property into the city, or
100% in agreement with that.
So,
we need to broaden the base.
Something had to start, and I think this is the start. Should something happen and that position doesn't get filled, then you would think we'd be able to look at some relief next year, and maybe there wouldn't be a property tax or a tax increase at all through the city general levy. But if everything goes according to plan.
No, I want to advocate for the economic development director position, because I think it's greatly needed. I think as a community, we do need to broaden the base. I think we need, someone who can recruit, retain, have fresh vision for the community to build. I think that spreads the load evenly, and I think a healthy community is meant to be growing. So I understand, and thanks for the that it'll come up in April, then I can come in and look at that as well, and that might also take care of some of this.
But
So,
keep in mind, though, you don't contact the city on that. You
Right, it's
contact
county.
the
Correct.
And I think you get a
mailing.
Yep.
evaluation mailing, and then you contact them to start the process.
But Joe, if you sit in on the meeting, it's really interesting, especially lake property. Quite fascinating.
maybe we need to extend the territory out a little bit around LiDAR or something.
Okay, anyone else in the audience?
Sorry, I'm running amok.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of on the same page there. Our taxes up for our river lot in town went up about 60%, that's city portion. And I think and if I read this right, I probably dropped the ball because they probably had the meeting when people are normally working in the summertime, but, because it was 2:00 in the afternoon. But our evaluation for our river property just on the end of Fifth Avenue here has gone up just completely bonkers in the last 3 years. It's gone up in little stages, because those river lots down here, the state of Minnesota owns all the rest of them by us because they were tax forfeited. But our lot we look up the values of the state of Minnesota's lots next to us, and ours is about 3 times higher. There hasn't been any improvements on it since 2009, when we sited that little shed. So, I mean, it went up the value, of course, isn't anywhere near other people's homes and stuff, but it went up $8,000 just this year, from 21 something to 29 something.
What percent of that were city taxes?
All told, my city taxes went up from 170 to 281. And I'm pretty sure I'm gonna just have to get a hold of the assessor and figure out why the valuation jumped, because there's been no buildings, no nothing. Nothing's changed down there. So we when we bought that back in, 2004, and then it's more than tripled. So, but yeah, so that's probably and when do they have that, in April, or can you get a hold of the assessor anytime? What's that?
You'll get a mailing on.
Right, but this mailing here was probably what we dropped the ball on then, because it was valuation for 2022.
You can get a hold of the assessor anytime. Well, you can get a hold of the assessor's office anytime and talk to them about it, and they'll tell you.
Yeah, when we saw little jumps every year, it was to be expected, but then all of a sudden, bam, it just jumped about 40% in 1 year. Because we've been looking to maybe get those other lots when the state ever decides to come up, but they're just sitting there.
Yeah, I don't know what the story is with them and why they're still sitting on the state.
Because there's, what's that?
There's one right by you, there's that end house, and then the next lot coming back towards Main Street, that is not state-owned, that's privately owned and it's been for sale.
There's 3 lots to the west of us that are state-owned, and 2 directly behind us.
And that's part of the problem with the state on tax forfeitures, and all this stuff goes back to the state. They don't pay taxes, and basically it reduces our net taxable capacity, which everybody's taxes go up. Because we still need the same amount of money, but now there's less properties paying. So the state needs to get these back on the.
Yeah, and they've been sitting that way for 4 years probably.
Is there a way to petition the state to find out if they would put a valuation on it to sell them?
Usually when property goes back to the state, the counties administer it, the state properties within the counties. So it'd be a matter of, I could get a hold of the auditor's office and say, what's going on with you?
We were told that neighboring property owners would get a letter informing them when they were coming up for sale or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Usually the city gets a letter first, because the cities are given first opportunity if they want to use the properties for a public purpose. The cities inquire, and if the city's saying, usually we say, if we don't want them, we let them know, no, we don't want them, then you get the letter for buying joint property. But we haven't seen anything on
All right, that's where I'll head.
Anyone else? Anyone else?
Don, were those those state-owned river lots, were they included in that lot survey that you did, or lot list, the buildable lot list that you?
Yeah,
Were they?
I believe them are, yeah. And I just went by parcel numbers that were vacant, or empty, that were buildable. So they're probably listed, yeah.
Would they be able to access the water from the townhome?
I don't think so. Wouldn't be much of an extension to get it there. But I'd have to look into that.
Okay, any more discussion in our truth and taxation hearing before we close the hearing? Any more discussion? Hearing none, we'll adjourn the truth and taxation hearing. We'll reconvene our city council meeting. We'll go to item number 14, approve the 2022 general budget.
Yeah, so basically, you can't increase the budget, but you can decrease the budget. If there was anything you wanted to change in the budget, which would affect property taxes. But we went over the budget, I guess we did it in September, whatever, so I don't know if you have any questions. I put this up just in case there was a question that we want to basically take a look at something in the budget, but you've seen it all.
All the yellow boxes are the same.
Everything's the same, yeah. There hasn't been any changes to this since you guys looked at it and approved the preliminary one in September, I think it was. Again, there was the economic development director, we figured wages and benefits and supplies and all that stuff at about $106,000. And like I said before, I don't know if that will get us one, but it's likely that we're not going to be hiring one in January, so this may pay a good portion of the year one. 2022 or 2023, it may be higher.
So have we advertised for that?
No, I'm still working on the job description for it.
So definitely not hiring one today.
No.
I move to approve the 2022 budget.
Second. Motion and second. Discussion?
Can you show us what the total budget is?
Yeah, so the total, one of the things, let me add, local government aid was slated to be this number, the 1.012 million. Now with the billions of dollars in surplus that the state seems to have, they are talking about local government aid numbers. So we'll see what comes out of the legislative session. Doesn't help, for the property taxes in 2022, but anyway. And there's a list of all the debt service we're going to be paying. But the total budget then is $2.092 million, and the special levy is $282,000. This is what they were last year.
Any more discussion? Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you. We'll back up to item number 10 is the 2022 water budget, which was included in our packet this evening. Don, do you want to speak to that?
You have it in your packet, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time, or a whole lot of, because you had them. I just want to say in a general sense, we've reduced these budgets. Both water and sewer, we have, I guess, minor decreases in them. You can see on this one, last year, our water budget was $573,000, and I'm reducing it down to $545,000. The main reason for the adjustments downward is because we've had reduced revenues. You'd think that during that drought last year, people would tend to maybe water more. And I know we were telling people conserve water, well, they must have listened, because we had really reduced revenues, and then to make it worse for us, we had increased expenses. Our revenues, or I should say our sales in water was down about 25% between 2022 and 2021. In 2020, or 2020, between 20 and 2021. In 2020, expenses exceeded revenues by about $20,000, but in 2021, expenses exceeded revenues by almost $100,000 in the water fund. So, you know, we did, based on the balances in the water fund, we kicked off 2022 January 1 with the rate increases that we have to have. That's partly because of our deficit numbers and our balances, but also because we're kind of gearing up for that 2024 project and our debt service on that, which a large majority of it is going to be paid for through the utility rate structure. One of the things that in the reduction of the sales and the budget itself too is you know, no capital outlay. So there are a couple things that, you know, we had a little bit of adjustment in debt service, but for our principals that needed to go up, our interest payments kind of went down, so they offset each other. But the biggest part of it was just the professional services took a jump up, and that's what we pay to have people service. And this applies to the wastewater also, sewer fund. But people service running or operating the plants for us, treatment plants, their numbers are based on the consumer price index, their increases. So everybody knows what happened to CPI, the COVID effect on the CPI. Usually it might be a 1% increase, and that was great for us because people service just had a 1% increase then. It was really helpful for our utilities. But last year, based on the months, wasn't even the full year, it was based on certain months, it was still 5.4%. So we took it in the short with having to increase the amount of money we pay for people service and given the budget by 5.4%. So you're talking a couple $100,000, that's insane. So that was one of the big parts of the budget. But I got with the people service and also with Brian Olson. There is no capital outlay in either one of these budgets. We basically took all that out. Now you do see for the water, the wells, last year was 22,700. This year it's 15,000. The 15,000 basically is if we need it. We always have 15,000 in case we have to pull it. We have a well. Some years we don't. Most years we don't. But we had to have something reflected in there in case a well goes and we have to rehab it by pulling it. So that's all that's in there. And then on the distribution side of water, we always have to replace meters. Every year, people's meters go out, water meters go out, or whatever, we have to replace some. So we're always buying about roughly about $13,000 split 50-50 between water and sewer per meters. Those are the two things that we have to have in there. There's no other capital. So the only way we'll buy anything capital related is if something dies and we have to replace it because we need it to run. So you know, with that, everything else pretty much stays the same in here. Obviously, there's wages and benefit adjustments that were done based on COLAs and stuff, but it's a decrease in the water budget. Any questions on it?
So, fire hydrants, are they included in this?
Fire hydrants are included in this. I did talk to Brian about the old hydrants, and he had in the last year's budget, he had some money to replace the old Iowa hydrant that he has out there, and actually he bought the parts. He just has to get it installed. So there is nothing in this budget to deal with hydrants. But if a hydrant goes, obviously we have to replace it.
And then, so the water, so that's, you're talking the hydrant that's up at their city shop that we sell water on?
Oh, that? That's not what I'm talking about.
But,
I
so,
go in general.
does that count as revenue
Yes,
in this?
yes.
Do we know how much we sell? I mean, have those rates changed?
No, the rates haven't changed. They're basically based on so many gallons or whatever, and there hasn't been any adjustment to those rates. I don't think those rates are typically out of line for what you see cities charging, but.
They're not.
No.
I filled there, and all points in between here and Fargo Moorhead. And further west you get from here up to Fargo Moorhead, the higher it is per 1,000 gallons.
Yeah, it's probably something we could look at, but that's
It's
not
not
gonna save,
low
that's
here.
not gonna save the budget either, though.
No, it's not low here, but it's middle of the road. It's a good spot to be.
And when that construction season starts, every construction season, every summer, that's when we start seeing contractors coming in and filling up their water trucks and buying the water from that hydrant. And I imagine we'll have a lot of revenue from that from 2024 and 2025.
Any more questions for Don?
So if there's no other questions, I just need to approve the budget.
Move to approve the 2022 water bill. 2021,
2022.
The one we're looking at.
Second? Motion second, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same, motion carried. Item number 11, 2022 sewer budget.
Pretty much we just say ditto, but the one thing with the sewer, the same situation. The sales were down, even though I show sales at the same number here. What I ended up doing, because I always want to try and balance budgets going into the year. And so what I ended up doing was just adjusting down the amount of investments sold to cover the budget. In 2021, we anticipated that we were going to have to use 104,000 of reserves to cover the budget should all expenses and revenues come in as anticipated. And I don't know where that has come in yet because we're not at the end of the year. But the same point in time, at the end of November, when we collect our last utility revenues, last year, the same point in time last year in 2020 versus 2021, we're down, in 2021, our revenues were 1.35 million in 2020. This year, at the same period, we're at 1.23 million. So it's down, over $100,000. So, and then on the expense side, the same time period, last year, if you take a look at revenues versus expenses, last year in November, we fell short, or our expenses were $150,000 over our revenues at this point. This year, it's $230,000 more in expenses than we have raised in revenue. And again, that's a reflection because the sewer bill is tied to how much water people use. So they weren't using as much water, plus the wastewater plant really took a hit in maintenance and things that it needed because things were failing. Part of this will be shored up a little bit when we get the rest of the insurance money that we got. Not much more, but we still have some coming when we had that power outage, and it took out almost $100,000 worth of equipment. And so we still have a little bit of that coming, but it's not going to make that much of a difference. So anyway, so I'm anticipating or hoping in 2022, if we have to use any reserves, it'll be about $83,000 to balance the budget. So you do see that there's just a minor, about $20,000 reduction in the budget, and it kind of goes along the same lines. One of the reasons, again, for the trying to reduce things, but we still have debt service that from our projects that is increasing. We do drop off in 2026 one of our big debt payments, and I think it's the phosphorus one, which is $312,000. When that drops off in 3 years, it's going to look a whole lot better. We just got to get there. And we kind of took that into account when we looked at the rate increases for the utilities too, kind of getting us up to that 2026 timeframe to see what things look like. So, and then the only other adjustments, if there's anything on the upward side, it has to do with wages and benefits or people service. And this is that going from 135,000 to 142,000 is clearly the 5.4% increase that we had to allocate to people service running the plants. I was able to drop the amount that we have to put away from 90 down to 75 to cover the PFA portion of the wastewater plant. We have to put so much money away towards, you know, upgrading the plant the next time it has to be done, and that's based on how much water we treat or effluent that we send out. And we can monitor that kind of by how much we take from the lagoons down to the plant. And so going for next year, I kind of have people service, you know, we kind of figure out how much water we want to take down, which drives out of the ponds, which drives how much we have to put away. So I can play with that number a little bit. Luckily, we have the capacity in the lagoons to hold water back. And then the other thing too is our chemical costs. People Services has done a really good job of trying to make adjustments down at the plant to keep us within our permit limits and reduce the amount of chemicals that we need to take phosphorus out of the waste stream, etc. So I was able to drop, anticipate dropping that thing down $25,000 just in chemical costs. So, and they think they still have a little bit of tweaking they can do, still keeping us within our MPCA permit limit. The biggest unknown is hauling sludge. Usually we run over budget. We spend more than $50,000 a year hauling sludge out, and I kept it at 50, hoping that the bugs that we're buying and putting into the ponds and putting into the plant, it's anticipated that they're going to actually reduce the amount of sludge that we generate. If that's the case, we'll have less to haul. And so we'll see how effective they are. Hopefully it won't take much to see the effect of that in how much we have to haul out. So with that, the budget numbers down at the bottom, 1.612 versus last year's 1.623 is my recommendation for the sewer budget. And again, there's no capital in these.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? Second. Discussion? Don, I have one question.
Yep.
The expenditures on equipment at the wastewater plant, are they related to 20-year-old pieces of equipment, or is it from the new project updates?
It's kind of disappointing because some of it has been the newer VFDs and stuff. When I say newer, they're still, one was the last project that we had the fiasco with, the clear construction. It's those pieces.
Really?
Yeah, that haven't lasted that long. The old PLC I/O boards that were in the plant prior, that we kept that technology. Those boards range from $500 to $1,700 a board. And we were going, every time there was a power glitch, we'd lose boards. And so we were buying I/O boards or PLC boards quite frequently. And we actually bought spares because that technology is becoming obsolete. And we're getting harder and harder to find, which means prices on things are higher too. So we took advantage and bought some spares, and then we also, working with Marks Electric, they put a surge protector in that system. There wasn't one there before, and that seems to have really had an effect on them boards when we have lightning and power surges and stuff like that too. So, but I'm starting to envision the wastewater plant project. Part of it's gonna involve that PLC technology and the IO boards, but we'll see. That it's just another, well, not only that, but we've been talking about the PFAs with the MPCA and the chlorides with the MPCA, so something's gonna be coming at some point. Hopefully it'll be 20 years down the road.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Seeing no other business on this evening's agenda, is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. Second. Motion second, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, the same. Meeting adjourned.